Oh, what fun it is to laugh and sing and build a Bionicle MOC this Christmas season, because that's what we're doing today. We're continuing our Bismuth Christmas episodes of the Bionicle Inspiration series, and we are covering fan-submitted MOCs. We're going to be covering 10 fan-submitted MOCs today that you yourselves have submitted. If you want to submit your own to the show, you can do so through the email you're currently seeing on your screen. So without further ado, let's begin. But before we begin, I have an extra special guest this episode today, and that extra special guest is a cup of water that I am about to drink. Before we begin, let's hear the input that our special guest has to say today. What are your thoughts on the Bionicle MOCs that we're going to be having today? Tastes like Bionicle, which should taste awful because it'd be like plastic and gross, hey. Anyway, thanks special guest. You're a real help in our episode today. So, let's begin. But before we begin, I bet you thought that was it. I bet you thought I got you, didn't I? You're like, oh, we're actually going to begin there. No, we're not. Just quickly, just a quick little tidbit here. It's not really that special news. If you follow me that much, you probably already know. But just in case you don't, I will be at Brickvention 2020 this January. I believe the dates are, they'll be on your screen right now. I believe it's around the 14th, 15th. It's a weekend mid-January. I always get confused on the dates for some reason, although it's my favourite time of the year. But regardless, I'll be there. So if you're at that LEGO convention in Melbourne, be sure to let me know that you'll be there, because I'm more than happy to say hi, I'm more than happy to have a chat. If you do see me or my MOCs there, by all means, come up, say hi, take a look at them, take pictures with them, come speak to me. I tend to be walking around the convention a lot, so do let me know if you'll be there, because I don't want to miss you, that's for sure. So if you're there, awesome. If you're not, wish you could be there. I'll be doing a proper full-on video announcement of it later with all the details, the times, the dates, all that stuff of when I'll be there, what I'll be bringing, what I'll be doing, where I'll be, all that business. But I figured I'd just let you know now, just so you have a bit of time to prep. But a proper announcement is coming, so stay tuned for that. Besides the point, let's begin the episode. So, fan-submitted MOCs. The first one that we've got today is called Akeldrid the Technomancer, and this is by ZZ. So I think this is a really clever concept. I love the idea of this MOC having all these different screens, and how some of these screens are kind of attached on additional appendages on the MOC. He's kind of got these little sort of additional arms on his waist there, but also these very long, kind of almost like stretchy robotic arms, and they're made through all those very little itty-bitty tiny CCBS connector socket ball connection pieces. And I love the look that is created by just getting a whole bunch of those and layering them on a big arm like that. It looks like some sort of crazy sci-fi stretcho arm, mechanical arm thing with all sorts of gears and interesting things flowing out of it. I like that. It's this sort of smooth, sleek design. I said gears flowing out of it. I meant like Inspector Gadget, like go-go arm is what I meant when I said gears. That's not really gears. Gears is the wrong word. But like an extendo stretchy arm with like levers and doohickeys and stuff. That's the word I meant. Besides the point though, I love the textures that are at play here. These beautiful clear screens that are a very distinct color difference that complements the white nicely. But also the textures that arm creates, that it gets that go-go gadget arm that I'm talking about there. And in the description for this MOC in the email, he said that he was very much trying to go for a sci-fi vibe. And I think that's very effectively communicated and very well done here on this MOC, because it perfectly looks like that. The beautiful contrast of the black and the white mixed in with this trans blue just screams science fiction, just screams the future and like a very, very strong robotic look, which I love. And that's kind of complemented nicely with the cape kind of flowing out of the waist here. And that kind of flows with the name here, a technomancer, kind of like kind of a mix of science and magic, And I think the combination of the cape and these very, very strong sci-fi smooth aesthetics on this MOC very effectively communicate that. So some really nice stuff going on here. There's also a little bit more of these sort of sci-fi textures being explored here as well. We take a look at the legs, especially kind of towards the feet. The feet and the lower legs are kind of one shared thing here. But I really like the flow that's created in using that Star Wars Ultra Build shin armor piece there. Kind of creates this beautiful, almost sort of like high heel look. It kind of gives this slight feminine look to the MOC in my opinion, which I kind of like. But it also just gives it this sense of, this very strong, sleek sense to it, this very new and exciting kind of look to it, which again, I think fits this kind of science, advancement and the futurist aspect to it, which is very fitting for what it's intended to be. which is great. Other little tidbits here, like the little slight bits of purple on the mock here, and a few other things as well. There's a really beautiful, strong sense of science fiction being communicated here, and some fun things being done. I really, really dig the idea of him having all these different screens and stuff on the body there, and how that can be used for all the different things that they can do. Super, super cool. On to the next mock now. This is Bertram the Bauer Family Titan by the Red Star. So this mock uses a whole bunch of different tires and wheel pieces, and I actually had someone in the comments a while ago, I don't think I replied to them, but they said, why did that mock use wheel pieces? Well, now's the time to explain, even though this isn't the mock that you were referring to. I think wheel and tire pieces are really, really good pieces to use. They take up a lot of space on the mock, and if you're building a slightly larger mock, or even if you're just building a smaller mock to some degree, often that to me is an issue you can have. You're building a leg, or you're building an arm, or you're building a torso, and one part of it looks fantastic, but the little next bit that you're working on just isn't flowing well. Or you've built an arm, but it's just slightly too short, and if you want to have sort of, typical human proportions, you're like, it needs to be slightly longer, but I just don't know how to extend it slightly and have it look nice, And so sometimes taking up a fair bit of real estate can be really helpful. So the idea of using large pieces like tires is pretty beneficial for that. Tires as well can have some very unique textures to them. We were talking about textures before. We'll talk a little bit more about it now. Tire textures have this interesting rubbery texture to them, and often have those sort of lines to them as well. Or you get some of those funky wheel pieces, like the wheel pieces being used on the lower legs here. Those came from some Power Miners sets, and they've appeared in a whole bunch of other colors and slightly different shapes and sizes in other sets more recently and in the past as well. And you can kind of put the two of them together there. It looks fantastic. They have a very interesting shape to them as well, and so you can get a very nice look if you put them on a mock, which is great. So kind of playing with tires, you do get that. You get some interesting shapes, textures, sizes, all sorts of different stuff. But also if you play with some of the rubber tire pieces, you straight up can bend them to your will. You can invert them, you can flip them inside out, and that way they actually get a slightly different texture to them, which looks a little bit more kind of rubbery and organic, a little bit like some sort of crazy evil looking beast, sort of like a texture or a hide on a creature. You can also just, tires come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes, which is very beneficial for whatever you're building. So, I don't know, there's a lot of pros to tires as well. You could say there's a lot of cons, but hey, let's just focus on the pros. Why not? And speaking of pros, Mr. Red Star here is a pro because he's used these tires very well. I think it's some very nice symmetry, or some nice poetry, if you will, kind of having tires being on the arms, the kind of lower arms here, and then the wheels being on the lower legs as well. Just kind of having the kind of buffed out areas of the mock being in very similar shared places, I think creates a nice sense of unity and kind of binds the mock together. You could say it surrounds us, penetrates us, and binds the galaxy together. But that's enough Star Wars quotes that actually serve no purpose to what I'm talking about. Sorry, Rise of Skywalker's coming out soon, and Ben's a little excited. Anyway, this mock uses those Honor chest pieces, and I've been on record saying, I don't like that part. It's a hard part to use. And almost every time I see it on BIS, I'm like, that's a really nice use of that piece. I could never use it well. But straight up, yeah, great use of it. Putting it on the shoulders there, very clever. Just an interesting way of kind of buffing out the shoulders. Doesn't make the mock look too obscure in any way, I don't think. I think it's an interesting design too, just having these very large and in charge I'm stumbling over my words. Shoulders. Or even upper arms, if you will. It's kind of a little bit of both. It kind of flows into one and the other there. It's cool. It's very fitting. And even having these little antennas coming out of it, these little sword pieces there, also works well. Just gives it a nice, interesting, almost sort of, not really a soldier look, but just kind of like padded armor to some degree. It's cool. So yeah, some clever stuff going on here on this awesome mock. Let's move on to the next one. This mock is by Bionicle Cossy, and this is called Braireus the Centaur. So some cool color blocking going on here. I love the fact that the brown is very much just concentrated on the horse part of this. Of course, the centaur is half horse, half man, or half bionicle in this sense, I guess. Could you call a bionicle a man? Could you call a bionicle a woman? If you want, I guess. Regardless, though, it's a centaur, and that's pretty cool. And so, a great way of doing this color blocking here to really accentuate that and show that. And I think it's done to great avail as well. I think he's really effectively created a very effective-looking horse body here. And the fact that he's managed to use the CCBS Chewbacca parts here to really great avail. I remember when that set came out, and I was talking to one Shadow Gear 6335, one of my good friends, and we were like, look, this is a cool set. I love Chewbacca. He's great. But hey, I don't think I can use these pieces. They've got the weird printing on them, this kind of interesting weird fur texture. I don't know, man. But honestly, this mock uses it very, very well. It works well as a sort of, horse texture to some degree. I guess that's what you could refer to it as. It's cool. It's very fitting. It's very nice. And then having all the orange up top there, that's cool as well. Really nice contrast with the brown. I think that works nicely. I like the interesting head crest that he's got here on his mask. There is a little bit of a connection point on the mask there, sort of 2 holes towards the top of the temple forehead there. So you could insert a little lightsaber rod or some sort of connection there, which he has done so. And he's added this interesting, almost sort of... not really like a moon crest or whatever, but just an interesting, kind of like a horn, but not a horn. I don't know what you'd call it. I'm not quite finding the words here. I was hoping it would come, but it didn't. But it looks cool. It's interesting. It's out there. It's different, and I like that. Also, some really nice photography done here as well. Going outside, always a great idea. Sometimes if you take some pictures indoors, depending on your lighting situation. If you have the right lighting and the right place to be taking pictures, it works well, but sometimes indoors can be a little bit too dark and you can't really see the mock. So going outside is a great idea. And you can also see here in the majority of these pictures, he appears to have gone into some of the shade and some of the more brighter areas that aren't in the shade. You can kind of see those a little bit more in the background. Good idea to go into some more diffused lighting there. Sometimes natural sunlight can be very, very harsh and can oversaturate your pictures there, make it a little bit too bright, and you just barely, you can't see anything, it's just too bright. But playing in the shade here is a good idea. One, because, slip, slap, slop, as we say in Australia. Stay in the shade and you won't get burnt by the sun and you won't get that melanoma. So thinking smart on one part there, but also thinking smart because, getting a little bit of diffused lighting there will definitely complement your mock. So if you're looking for some photography tips, there you go. I could go into more detail, but I might be doing a separate episode on that. I don't know yet. I haven't really thought about it. If you're interested in it, do let me know. I would be interested in doing that, but if you are, I'll do it. If not, Regardless though, really, really sick Centaur mock. Really nice pictures. Nicely done. This next mock is by Dylan Steed, if you will, and this mock is called Phantom. So this mock has toe articulation. That's not a sentence I thought I'd say today, but hey, I just did, and it was worth it. So toe articulation is not really something you see every day. If you look at more high-end action figures, or even some of the low-end action figures, honestly, some of them have toe articulation, and, a lot of those more expensive action figures pride themselves on having 8,964 points of articulation, and it's often pretty cool. And I'll be honest, as somebody who also buys a little bit of action figures here and there, it is cool to play around with a well-articulated toy. And so if you're someone who builds your Bionicles and you like them being super articulated, maybe having a little bit of toe articulation might be the route to go. And why is that? Because, certain poses that you want to get a mock in, it does help to have a bit of toe articulation because then you can more effectively achieve that pose. I mean, think about it. If you get in a little bit of a combat stance, you got your leg back and the other one's a little bit further forward as you're getting ready to punch someone, which, we're not going to advocate violence here, but in this hypothetical situation, your toes are bent back slightly as you kind of arch up the back of your leg there, your sole, if you will, and there's that slight kind of, articulation in your toe. And so if you put that on your mock or your action figure, you can more effectively get those poses. Heck, you don't need toe articulation if you don't want it. That's fine. Just use a prefab foot piece or build your own custom foot that doesn't have toe articulation. That's perfectly fine. But if you want to really kind of play around with some of those more dynamic poses, it's something to at least think about. And so how's he done it here? Well, he has used a 1x2 system plate that has the handlebar on the side of it, and then he's got a 1x2 Technic lift arm piece, put them on both sides of that handlebar there, and then you do get that slight articulation. It's a decently strong connection as well, so it's nothing too flimsy or schlimsy blimsy or whatever you want to say there. It works, and that's good. I also like the stickers on the back of this mock's legs. Just a fun little slight detail there. I always advocate stickers. I've said it heaps of times. I won't say it again. But man, stickers are great. Put them on your mock. It adds just a little bit of nice flair. Why not? And one thing I really like about this mock, got a lot of prefab torso pieces, also got a lot of kind of custom built design, specifically those upper legs there. A nice blend of the two. And if you want to be a little bit more posable, adding in some prefab torso pieces is a great way to be super posable, because guess what? LEGO designs their sets to be super posable. So why not take advantage of that? There you go. So a nice mock here, Dylan. On to the next one. This is by a really fun name that I'm really excited to say. Frizz the Frizzer. And his mock is called Burning Godzilla. Now, whether Godzilla was just not executing fire safety rules and playing around with some matches when he shouldn't have been, and he's on fire, and he's like, I guess I'll destroy Tokyo, Or if he's like Wolverine and he's developed these cool new fire powers, maybe. I don't know. Honestly, either one is pretty cool and slightly funny, and I really like it. It also makes for a really sick color scheme. Trans orange and black always looks quite nice. There's another mock coming up a little bit later that uses black and another translucent color, and I'll obviously talk a little bit about it later, but man, using trans colors and black, it works really, really well. And honestly, black goes really well with everything, but still, translucent colors and black, mwah, it's extra nice. So the MOCs head on this, the kind of more crocodile-looking head design thing he's got going on there, that is from, I believe the name of the set was Kragger, the Chima CCBS sets that they used to make. That headpiece came on the crocodile fighter man named Kragger, and he was pretty cool. However, that headpiece came in, like, the bottom jaw was, like, olive green. Was the bottom? Yeah, the bottom jaw was olive green, and the top of the head was dark green, and the eyes were red, and the teeth were white. There's a lot of colors on it. And that's fine. I'm not necessarily knocking the fact there was a lot of colors on there. I think it actually works quite well. But it does make it a little bit more difficult to use in other MOCs. So why not paint it, man? And why not paint it black? Because it looks very nice in black, actually. And then you can get a really sick MOC with it, too. So heck, you know, if you don't want to paint your parts, I'm not going to force you to. But it can lead to some pretty cool stuff. So maybe that's a route you want to explore. Or a route that you want to explore. However you want to pronounce that. Taking a look at the back of this MOC. A lot of different spikes, and that looks really cool. A big old spiky back, or just a whole bunch of spikes on any MOC. Honestly, I always think that looks pretty cool, but that might just be my own personal preference. Regardless though, very nice. And I love how he's kind of taken advantage of CCBS here, like this MOC seems to be pretty much entirely CCBS pieces, and typically CCBS has a lot of the ball and socket connections. You take a look at almost all of the torso pieces on any CCBS set, there's a lot of different ball connections on them. And so I like the fact that this back is probably just littered with a whole bunch of like torso things, arms, all of which have a whole bunch of the different ball connections. And then he's put a whole bunch of different hand socket pieces on them, and then from that, he's put a whole bunch of spikes. So these spikes probably are slightly posable, which I don't know if that's intended or not, but hey, it works. But it's also a really good way of getting a whole bunch of connection points. That's one of the beautiful things about CCBS. There are actually a decent amount of connection points on there. So I know that's something that can be daunting. You know, I've built MOCs before where I go, ooh, I'm going to add, just like that, spikes on the back of a dinosaur or a dragon or whatever. Or I'm going to add this cool thing, but I go, I don't have anywhere to connect it to. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Or maybe play around with a bit of your CCBS and play with some of the ball and socket connections and go, aha, here are those connections, I found them. So there you go. So there's some cool stuff going on here in this MOC. I actually quite like it a lot. The next MOC we're going to talk about today is by Juan Pablo Cota. And it is called Bengal Shark. So this is a simple, quick build. Doesn't use too many pieces. Might have taken a little bit of time to build. Might have taken like 2 seconds to build. I don't know. I ain't going to judge you if you took a long time to build. I myself am a quick builder. But also, the thing I'm building now, it's taken me 2 months to build. So, you know, it doesn't really matter how long it takes you to build, but regardless. That's certainly a big lesson I've learned. I used to build massive things. Go on my Flickr and look up my Auto Platonia Star Wars MOC. That thing is huge. I had to rent a van to take it to a convention. Also because I wasn't smart and didn't make it modular. I have since learnt that lesson. But speaking of learning lessons, there was a day where I was like, I'm gonna build massive MOCs, it's amazing, and I build big, and it's great, And yes, it is, it's cool, it's fun. But you know what's more fun? Building. You know what's not fun? Going, I can't build, because the massive thing I build needs thousands of dollars invested into it, lots of bricklink orders, and time. And I have none of those things, you know what I'm saying? So building smaller was a lesson I learned. Nowadays, I actually tend to build a lot of tiny dioramas, little vignettes, and then at the end of the year, I build something nice and big, and I display it at Brickvention, which you can come see me at. Ooh, look at that segue. But why not do that with this, much like this Bengal Shark here? And also, it's a busy time of the year. It's Christmas. Most of us are pretty busy right now. Or we're not, because we're done with school and we're like, what do I do with my life? Regardless though, everyone can spare 20 minutes, everybody can spare 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. Why not put together a fun little shark like this? Why not put together a fun little Matoran or a little tiny MOC, you know? No use building a big old massive Titan. I mean, heck, if you want to build a big old massive Titan, by all means, I'm going to stop you. And I'm not even saying you have to build small. If you want to build big, by all means, go ahead. But if you're one of those people that's always like, ah, man, I just don't have the time or the money or the patience or the blah, build small, man. I'm a big advocate for that. And I always talk about this, but I'm going to say it again. Yeah. Regardless though, it's a good time of the year to be building something small and fun, so why not? Regardless though, I like this guy. Fun little shark MOC. Don't see nearly enough shark MOCs. This is the hard truths, hitting you with some mad truths here. Much like Mitch Henry in that one ad I made once. One thing I love about this mock, though, I like how the jawblade mask kind of transitions nicely into the Nuva shoulder here. Especially from a front-on angle, it really looks like the mouth is big old, open, and about to bite down on you. It's always cool how certain pieces can just perfectly align with other pieces. I think this is a fun example of that. So nicely done. This next mock is by Jordan Austin and is called Voltara Toa of Lightning. Ooh, you didn't see my jazz hands in that ooh, but they were there. Have no fear. But on to Voltara. This mock has some pretty cool hair. And it's something I used to see all the time on Bionicle mocks, is people building hair onto Bionicles, specifically female mocks. And ironically, I don't see it too much these days. That's not ironic at all. No, it's not. But, you know, it's just interesting at least. But this mock has some cool hair, and it uses some interesting tube pieces for it, and it works well, it looks cool. So why not build some funky hair things on your Bionicle mocks? You know, having some luscious, beautiful locks is always a fun little addition, and you can come up with some really clever techniques for it. I've seen some awesome hair techniques on mocks before, so maybe give it a go. This mock does it really well. And speaking of doing things well, this mock has some awesome wing designs as well. And when you're building wings, blades and sword pieces are definitely your friends. Because this mock here uses some of the blade pieces from like Kupaka and Tahu, and they work quite well as wings actually. And the beautiful thing about it too, those wings aren't, or those blade pieces rather, they're not super heavy parts. So certainly an issue you can run into with wings is, I've built wings before that use like 80 different blade pieces and all sorts of craziness. And the mock can get super top heavy, and just those wings can really weigh down the mock, and it can barely stand itself up, which can be a slight issue. But if you just use sort of more minimal blades like this, but, you know, kind of layer them in the fun way, then it won't be too much of an issue of it being any, too heavy and causing the mock to not really be able to balance itself. The other added bonus you can have is, much like this mock is doing, those wings can kind of fold up a little bit, so you can kind of get some cool shots and cool effects with that, which is always cool. So something to be thinking about, something to be playing around with as well. A couple of these photos as well has this mock on an interesting stand. It doesn't quite look like it's Lego. I think it's something else. But hey, that's something to always think about for, you know, displaying or photographing your mocks. Maybe you want to build a Lego stand, or you want to use some sort of stand that you got lying around the house that isn't Lego that could actually support your mock. Why not? The next mock is by Simon Hagland, and this is called My Submission. I don't think it had a name on the email. Nope, I just double-checked. It in fact does not. We'll call him Bill. So I like the head design on this mock. Kind of has little elements of Anubis, the Egyptian god there. He's super cool. And that's kind of more prominent in those very large spike pieces coming out of the top of the head here. But the eyes, the two kind of trans green eyes on this mock here, I quite like that too. Kind of gives this slight robotic flair to the mock. And I really like that, like Techno Anubis. That's just a cool concept. And maybe this mock isn't called Bill. Maybe it's Techno Anubis, which is a much cooler name. Or Bill the Techno Anubis. More food for thought. Who knows which one is true? That's my current headcanon. Anyway, I like the head design a lot, and I like some of the concepts that are being played with here. Another thing I like as well is, we spoke about it before, black on translucent colours. And the trans green on black here, it looks very nice. And the little hints of gunmetal as well also fits in quite nicely. It's also interesting to note how well gunmetal and black can kind of complement each other. You know, they're colours that are quite close in the colour spectrum there, so it works well. But yeah, this is a fun CCBS heavy mock, and looks super cool. The next mock we got here is by Coal Dragon. Now, I'm actually going to take a slightly different route on talking about this mock here, because as I was writing up my notes, taking a look at the rest of the picture here, it sparked something in me, which was pretty cool. So we see the photography in this mock here. He's taken this picture on a chair. That's pretty cool. And it reminded me of when I used to play with my Bionicles, and the house would become a battle zone. The house would become Metru Nui itself, or Mata Nui, or Krata Nui, or wherever the heck it was with the toys I was playing with. And suddenly, the dining room table became a battle arena, the chairs became the catacombs below it, or, as I would do, the stairs would become like a pit of doom, because I had these like long like double staircase in my house, and so like the one staircase you kind of look down on the other one, and so you can kind of like push things off the staircase and it goes to the other like end of the other staircase. I'm explaining this very poorly, but basically all the different flights of stairs were like different levels of the city, and then there was like a pit on the end, and if you fell off you landed on other areas of the stairs, and either the Bionicle died, or they were like, oh, now I'm on this level. You know, good fun. And this mock just made me think of that, more specifically in the photography. And you know what? That's the spirit of LEGO, and that's the spirit of Bionicle Man, is the playing. And you know what? You're never too old to play. Why not? You probably made a cool mock, and it sits on your shelf gathering dust, and you're like, I made that, that's cool. Why not play around with it for a sec, you know? Why not transform your desk into a battle zone again? Or why not transform the kitchen into Makuta's evil lair, and Vakama, Metru, and Gali Mata are like, we're gonna take him down, and while we're at it, grab a Hot Pocket from the fridge. I don't know about you, but that was fun as a kid. Why can't it be fun now? And even just that, even if you're like, I'm too cool to be playing, that's fine, I'm not gonna force you to. But heck man, cast yourself back to your childhood and remember the fun you used to have of building and playing with your LEGO. And how can you kind of incorporate that into your own building style now? Were there mocks that you made when you were a wee young lad and Bionicle had just come out? Or maybe you're a wee young lad now and you cast back a couple years ago and you think, I remember Bingo Bobbyson, the one mock I made. He was super cool. I'm going to revamp him now. Why not do something like that? Cast yourself back to some of your olden days, some of the old mocks you made. Go on a nostalgia trip. Maybe that could be a fun little way to get some creative juices flowing, get some inspiration. I remember I had like some crazy weird purple mock that I made as a kid, and I ended up remaking him like 8 years ago, and maybe I could remake them again now. Who knows? That would be a fun little thing to do, and there's a nice sense of nostalgia, a nice sense of connection in that as well, which is cool. So what are some of your Bionicle memories, childhood memories, or mocking memories of the past? Can you relive them now? And hey, if you've got some, share them in the comments. I'd be keen to read that. I'm sure other people would as well. So that was a very different tangent. I normally don't talk about that sort of stuff with mocks, but hey, new things are fun. But talking a little bit about this mock, because why not? It's got gold in it. Gold, for me as a kid, was such a cool color. I remember Brutaka, the awesome Bionicle set that he is, half of the reason Brutaka was cool was because he was gold. And, like, Ninjago having, like, gold weapons and, like, basically any gold Lego piece, you're like, oh my god, it's gold. That means it's amazing. So, more nostalgia in that, and more reason to be like, I'm gonna build a gold mock, because gold is actually super cool. Let's not be adults about it and be like, it's just another color. Like, no, gold is the coolest color. It's the color of winning in first place. It's great. It's like the big claws on this mock, and the nostalgia that it brought back. And speaking of nostalgia, let's go to another mock here, and this is Krekker. And Krekker was built by Toa Ferox. So this is a more, the reason I said nostalgia is the transition, this is a more Bionicle movie accurate version of Krekker. And Krekker was a great Bionicle set, but even as a wee lad, even as a kid, watching those Bionicle movies and seeing Krekker in it, I was like, he looks super cool, and I love his characterization, being this big, brooding, dumb guy. But he looks nothing like the toy. But I was fine with that, I didn't really mind. But I love seeing this mock here and how accurate it is to the source material. Super, super cool, and awesome to see. I love this more sort of system-focused head design here. Looks fantastic. The different eyes here look brilliant. Love the fact he's used some of these larger claw pieces here. Some of those came on the most recent Harry Potter Aragog set. Those kind of black claws that he has here. Those claw pieces are super cool. They came in a few other sets as well, but they work super well for Bionicle. Why not give them a try and use them, because they're super nice. There's nothing like revamping a classic, and I think this is a really, really nice example of that. Some of the poses this guy is in is great. Nothing like building a super posable mock, and it's just fun to take pictures of posable mocks as well, or even in just having it on your desk and playing around with it. It's just a fun thing to do. One little detail I like about this one, and then we'll finish off here. I love the gears in his torso here. I think that's just a fun little detail. And I don't know if there's actually a gear function on this mock, but the illusion that there is this gear function, and the illusion that there's, the mock has kind of like gears inside him, and that's kind of like his quote-unquote internal organs as a mechanical being, I kind of like that. And maybe that's something you could do on one of your own mocks, is just imply the sense that there is a sort of mechanical underlying underneath the armor there. It's just a fun little detail there. I think it does a lot. It's pretty cool. So there you go. That has been Abysmus Christmas. That has been a few more Bionicle mocks for you. We've still got a couple more episodes of Abysmus Christmas to come. They'll be every Tuesday in December. What's the next one? I've completely forgotten. What is next Tuesday? Next Tuesday is the 24th, man. That's the day before Christmas. So we're getting close now. The Lego Star Wars Advent calendar that I've been opening is getting on the home stretch here, as is Christmas. So hopefully you're getting ready. Hopefully you're getting excited for those presents, or just getting excited for Star Wars, because that's the other reason we celebrate December in general. Regardless though, that's been this episode. Be sure to check the links in the description for the MOCs you've seen in today's episode. Typically in these submitted episode MOCs, not everyone always has a link or has social media, so sometimes I just say emailed submission. But there are sometimes links, and of course there are links in this episode today, so please do check those out. Check out some of the other stuff these guys do. Give them a follow, give them a like, give them some love. Also, while you're there, you can see the submission email. You can copy and paste that, or you're seeing it right now on your screen. That submission email is how you submit MOCs to the show. You saw it at the start of the episode. You're seeing it again now. There's no real rules about that. I had somebody email me and they were asking about rules and stuff. I tend not to answer questions on the email, so please don't really send that sort of stuff. Just send submissions to it because that's all that its purpose is for. Besides the point though, send whatever you want. Send as many pictures as you want, as little pictures as you want. If you want to send me the entire 24-page backstory on it, knock yourself out. Send me the name, your name, anything. Even if you don't. One of the MOCs we had today had no info on it, just pictures. That's fine as well. Send me whatever you want, girl. That is good. Also, while you're in the description and copying and pasting that email into your email address thingamajig, I don't know what the words are for that. They are failing me right now and not popping into my head. But speaking of things popping into my head, there's no real, solace in that transition. I just said it. In the description are also links to my social media where you can see my Instagram, Facebook, Flickr, all those websites. Some of them start with F, most of them start with F, except Instagram. But maybe it has a silent F and none of us know about it. But speaking of F, you'll see me post frigates from Star Wars or funky dioramas, or in the future you'll see me post castle dioramas that are fun. There's the F. I don't know. The castle dioramas are coming soon as that is what I'll be bringing to Brickvention this year, and some Bionicles most likely as well. Besides the point now, this is getting to be a longer episode, and I really need to shorten out my outros. Speaking of which, bye!